again, everyone, and welcome to LanguageCaster.com, the football language podcast for learners of English who love the beautiful game of football. I'm Damien, and I'm one half of the LanguageCaster team. Damon, the other team member, is, of course, based in Japan. I'm back in London after my trip to Ireland last week, and the weather here is starting to become a little cooler as we move into autumn. Now, as many of you will know, there are no Premier League matches this weekend due to the passing of the Queen here in the UK. But on today's show, we're going to look back at some of the language from the first set of group stage matches from this season's Champions League, and in particular at the phrase shock defeat. Now, recently we have discussed the expression heavy defeat, which is used to describe a thrashing, a really bad loss. But a shock defeat is one which is not expected at all. It's a surprise.
Tá tú a géisteacht le languagecaster.com.
Dinamo Zagreb 1, Chelsea 0. Two-time winners Chelsea began their Champions League campaign with a shock defeat at Dinamo Zagreb. And this is from the BBC. Croatian side Dinamo Zagreb pulled off a big surprise or shock with their 1-0 home win against Chelsea. The home side have not done well in previous Champions League matches, winning only 5 out of 43. So this result was a big shock indeed. The BBC report used the verb to pull off a shock, which is another way of saying to shock. They shocked Chelsea with this victory. Indeed, this was such a shock that the Chelsea manager was sacked a couple of days later. RB Leipzig 1, Shakhtar Donetsk 4. German Cup winners Leipzig, who've sacked boss Domenico Tedesco in the wake of the shock defeat. So in this Mirror report, the focus is on the losing side, RB Leipzig, who were beaten 4-1 at home by Ukrainian side Shakhtar Donetsk. Not many people thought this result would happen, especially as the Ukrainian side have lost many players and have only just restarted playing football in their domestic league. So this result was seen as a huge surprise or a huge shock. The German side, like Chelsea, also fired their manager because of this shock defeat. Napoli 4, Liverpool 1. Liverpool, Champions League runners-up last season, suffered a shock 4-1 defeat by Napoli in their opening Group A game at the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium on Wednesday. And this is how Reuters described the game. So although Napoli are currently top of Serie A, this victory over Liverpool was still seen as a shock result, as their opponents have played in 3 Champions League finals in the past 5 seasons. In this report from Reuters, they've used the verb to suffered a shock defeat. So the focus is on Liverpool rather than Napoli. The Reds suffered a shock defeat, which would suggest that few would have predicted this kind of result or performance. So far, however, the Liverpool manager has not been sacked after this shock defeat, unlike in the previous 2 examples.
Vous écoutez languagecaster.com.
Now, if you want to ask any football language questions or simply say hello, then you can do so by adding a comment on our site here or by using our forum. Now, we've recently had quite a few questions on the forum, including the phrase to charge in on the right, which you can check out the discussion there on the forum. You can also, of course, send us an email at admin@languagecaster.com, and you can also look out for us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
State ascoltando languagecaster.com.
Yeah, you are listening to LanguageCaster. That message was in Italian, and we'd love to hear from anyone else who might like to share this message. You are listening to LanguageCaster.com. It would be great to hear lots of different voices. Don't forget that there's a transcript to this podcast, and there's lots of vocabulary support, which you can access by coming along to our site. We really think it's a great resource for those learning and teaching the language. Okay, that's it for this short football language podcast in which we looked back at the phrases shock defeat and to suffer a shock defeat after some of the first round of group matches in this year's Champions League. What do you think of these shock defeats? Can you think of any other examples of shock defeats? Let us know in the comments below or, as I said, on our forum page. And we'll be back soon with more football language, and until then, enjoy all the football. Bye bye.